Welcome to the July 15th, 2025 work session of the Mayor and City Council. Meeting is now called to order. Before I move any further, I got instructions to make sure that we keep the microphones closer to us and make sure you enunciate everything. So it can be heard, because we've had a couple people say that they can't hear us, so just make sure. First up, we have expansion plans, Washington County Museum of Fine Arts, Mr. Jim Bender and Sarah Hall.
So good afternoon. I think that you're all aware that the Museum of Fine Arts is, for several years, has been planning expansion and reimagining of spaces at City Park. And since it's been a couple of years since you've received an update, and we have some new council members on the council, we thought it would be a good idea to ask Sarah to come in and to sort of update on where they're at with their process. And then when she's finished with her presentation, there are a couple of things that I want to talk about that are related to their plans and how that impacts City Park. But I'll go ahead and turn it over to Sarah.
Hi, everybody. Before I get started, I think I sent everybody a note, but thank you all in person for helping support our treasure sale with the space downtown for us to sort and price things. And I'm really happy to be with you and give an update. It has been nearly 2 years since I was here before, and so I'll give a little bit of a review and where we are now, what's happened since the last time I reported, and then some things that I think really overlap, particularly with city interests that I don't think can happen unless we all want them to happen together. So what you're looking at in this introductory slides are renderings of the expanded main museum building on the left and the renovated education center at the Key Street site on the right. I'm going to move on, how it started. So we are looking at the evolution of the museum from 1931 to the present. This is simply a visual reminder that the museum has never been stagnant. There have been periodic moments where generational change has been necessary to meet community needs. So you see the original 1931 building at the left, top right is the 1949 wings, and then the green roof that you see is the 1994 expansion, and then that glass roof over the atrium was put on in 2011. So why are these generational needs for the museum to change? We took a long look when I first came, so probably around 4 years ago now, I've been here 5 years now, at our existing facilities and operations, because we were feeling pinched, and there was this opportunity to consider expanding into another facility. It actually all started out by a number of visits to the Herald Mill building that just didn't seem to suit our needs right, and someone said, go over and look at the old Bach Oil building, which we no longer call the old Bach Oil building. And we felt like it was a perfect fit for our needs. If I had my way, it would be wonderful to be able to do everything we want to do in one building, but it's not possible. So this just gives a little idea of the constraints we're working in. And then these are some physical depictions of the constraints we're working in. So the 1994 expansion was wonderful, but it only created one classroom. I think it actually built 2 classrooms. I think we were thinking there would be an adult classroom and a kids classroom. The other classroom was immediately taken over for office spaces as the museum grew. And so you see our classroom there on the right, which has limited storage. And on the left, you see kids' coats and backpacks piled up in the atrium because we don't even have a place for them to hang up their coats and backpacks. And then this is just an image of what happens when we have a school group in the museum and it's crowded and kids are walking down narrow hallways. And a couple of other things that as we went through our planning came to the fore that we kind of didn't expect is that this did become a project much more about accessibility than we thought of at the beginning, because I found as I was having conversations with the community, there are a number of museum patrons, whether they're elderly or simply disabled physically and for some other reason. We have those 2 flights of stairs down to get into the museum, and while we have a handicapped accessible ramp, which you can see along the left side of that right image, it's a very long ramp and it's kind of steep, even though it's to code. And I've had people tell me they kind of have to psych themselves up to come to the museum because it's really not easy for them to get in. And we also have a very small museum store that would not be very navigable for someone in a wheelchair. So these things came to the fore as we were doing our work. Also, as we have been coming out of the pandemic and reestablishing our visitation, which we are back to our pre-pandemic numbers, thankfully, we've been working on, if you go back into the museum files and read strategic plans that go back 30 years, everyone constantly says, you know, we're tired of being a hidden gem. We want people to know who we are. We want to be a mid-Atlantic destination. We want to be a regional destination and have more impact. And I think the way you do that is through some of these more ambitious exhibition projects that get repeat visitors and get people willing to drive 45 or 60 minutes. And in fact, for the exhibition we have now of the personal photographs of Frida Kahlo, we've got people coming from North Carolina, from Virginia. It's really wonderful. My friends came this weekend and there was a guest book in their B&B. And the people from the weekend before had said, came to museum for Frida Kahlo show. And they were from North Carolina. And I took a picture of it. I was so excited. So you can see some of these, a couple of images of some of the more ambitious shows we've done. And that image on the right, our children's reading area that we did with the children's book illustration show, if you look carefully, you can see just how much art is packed into that room, which really needed about 50% more space for that show to really shine. And then we're doing more ambitious events all of the time. So let's see, and I've left my notes behind. So I know there are some things I want to specifically say to you. So we're doing a lot of creative community programs. So this is an image of our Floating Beauty After Dark, which we did last year in October. And I know Kelly, our Director of Education, talked with folks at the city about doing the lanterns on the lake, which were all LED. And I think we had emergency crews on standby if any kids fell in the lake. And we had the folks from the Model Yacht Club who came with tugs to be able to push all the lanterns back so we could clear them off the lake at the end. But it was a really, really beautiful evening. And this past Friday, we had an amazing garden night at the museum with 250 people. And we've also increased our free youth education offerings over the last several years, adding more middle school and high school programs to our full roster of elementary school programs and summer camps. So we are growing, and a lot of this is about wanting to say yes when people call us and want to do something. Right now, you know, we can take one school field trip, we can take one scout group, we can take just one group at a time. So this is a wordy slide, which is unusual for me. I like to talk about pictures, but it really does have a lot of information in it about the evolving role of museums. So when the museum opened 90-something years ago, it was really about having a collection here for people to access and sort of being this beacon of culture and taking care of that culture. But the role of museums has really expanded to be about economic development, about tourism, but also about these things that people don't realize, that communities with strong arts and cultural organizations report less instances of domestic violence. You have a 5-year advantage in cognitive age if you're a regular attendee of arts programs. There's mental health benefits. There are museums that are now actually, you know, there are countries that are now actually writing prescriptions for museum visits. Switzerland and I think in Canada, doctors are saying you need to go to the museum and writing them prescriptions to go to the museum. And also, let's not forget fun. We'd like to do like Friday night, an amazing experience. I think every single one of those 250 people were happy on Friday night, which was an accomplishment. In fact, somebody on Facebook said they felt a little bit better about humanity after being at the museum Friday night. We love that. So with all those sort of expressions of why we want to do what we're doing and our needs, this is just reiterating what we've done thus far, a sort of thoughtful, deliberate progression in terms of master planning, environmental assessment. We did a market opportunity study. We had the master plan approved. We actually purchased the site. We're in the midst of the quiet phase of our campaign after having done a campaign study. So a lot has gone on. And at this point, we have just completed schematic design with Cooper Robertson Architects just a couple of months ago. I think I've probably kind of talked about all of the things on that slide, so we'll go. The market opportunity study that I referenced, which we did as part of the kickoff of this project, really looked at, who is there. And we know that outside, 86% of these 1.1 million residents are actually outside Washington County, and they are in some ways demographically more likely to be museum visitors than the folks who live right here in the county. So there is great potential for audience growth in terms of this getting people to come repeatedly. And I know from being on the CVB board that their consultant they had last year was saying, every dollar somebody spends in the county turns into 6. So you want people to come in here, even if they're just having lunch somewhere and coming in for the day. And here's the next slide, looks at comparisons, our competition, other regional arts-oriented facilities, and that red line is that 60-minute drive time to get to our museum. And then we're looking at the market area and segments here, and who are primary market and secondary. So moving on to the sort of more exciting, fun stuff here. We went through an RFP process for selection of architects, and that was about a year ago that we had, I think, 21 responses to our RFP, and we had, I think, 5 people come in and present. And Cooper Robertson were selected. They are based in New York. Some of their high-profile projects recently were the AKAG Museum in Buffalo, and they just got a lot of attention for the Studio Museum in Harlem. And I'll mention the Gateway Arch Museum later because the landscape architect that they work with on that has also been working on our project. So diving right into where we ended up with Cooper Robertson in April, here you see in the upper right, the existing footprint of the main museum building, and then the large image is the proposed expanded building. And what you're seeing there is on the bottom right, a new entrance, which is level, no need for ramps, much more accessible. You're seeing, expanded space for welcoming visitors, a larger museum store, a better separation in front and back of house. So what you may not know unless you're a frequent visitor to the museum, but there at the top right, that is our loading dock. And so it's the big thing here is moving the loading dock, which from essentially the front of the building and the lake side of the building, which is what everybody sees when they come in, to moving the loading dock to the back of the building so that we have more lakefront essentially for visitors to enjoy and to have that be the front of the museum, the front door. And I wanted to point out that the pink part that's bottom center, the original sort of 1949 building, when that was designed, it was designed with the whole interior concept of enfilades, these spaces that continue opening onto each other. So if you walked in, the orange space, our atrium, used to be the parking lot. If you came in that door and walked in, you saw all the way out to the lake in Diana. And if you turned left or right, you had a whole view either up or down the museum. So these strong axes, the enfilades. And what we did in 1994 by doing the atrium is we created this circulation that was all about walking around this narrow hallway around the perimeter of the museum rather than progressing from space to space. And so the architects have tried to reinforce the enfilade concept with this so that when you come in to that new entryway and turn to the left, you see all the way down. And in fact, they were working with this idea too that everybody loves Diana and that gorgeous moment of seeing the park, trying to create some other moments like that, not as major, but there is a little, what they call the sun-dappled veranda at the end of that yellow hallway on the back of the museum, another moment where the park breaks into the building and you get a breath of the green of the park. So I was really happy with how sensitively they've been treating the historic architecture and trying to sort of elevate that experience. Another key thing here is that our, on the left, the pink square basically on the left is the Grow Gallery, where right now we have the Frida Kahlo show and where we had that children's book illustration show, and it is gaining an addition so that we can have more space for impactful exhibitions. And then the blue area at the top is improved staff spaces with actually a space where people can take breaks. Right now there's like no lunch space for anybody in the museum. So enough of that, and I can talk in more detail about anything anyone's interested in. I'm happy to give tours and stand around in the space and talk about things with anyone. But this is a rendering. I will say we are still at the conceptual level, even schematic design. So the next is design development. We're working with them on the next part of their contract, which would take us all the way through design development, construction documents, bidding, and construction management. So that is probably another year of architectural work. But we put a deliberate pause in the contract just to be like, okay, here's where we are. We're assessing. Let's go forward, or maybe we had a bad experience and don't want to go forward. But we're very happy. So we're ready to move on to the next part of that. So then there's a few images, a few of these renderings of what things might look like. This exterior rendering, they're borrowing sort of strong verticals from the rotunda where Diana is, and this sense of sort of a voluptuous curve. There will not be a water feature out there, I will tell you that. Last thing I want is kids getting wet and then coming in the museum. But try to tell that to the folks who like to make reflections in the drawings. But this idea also of, a welcoming space. There is in the museum world, the talk about threshold fear. And so often museums are really beautiful buildings, but they're intimidating buildings. And to some extent, the way a glass door in a museum makes a huge difference in whether people feel welcome to come in or not. And then this is a rendering of that expanded grow gallery, which would allow us to better house some ambitious shows. And I'm not talking about huge shows. This is about 4,300 square feet. And right now we have 2,400 square feet. So, huge museums will give 7,000 square feet to a major exhibition. But this gives us enough more space that we can do more things in a more gracious way. And you can see in the back there, that little bit of window to the park. That's the new sort of add-on. There's also a connection being made. If you know the museum right now, if you're in the Grow Gallery, you walk out of it and through the Fulton Gallery into the Singer Gallery. But the idea here is to connect the Grow Gallery to the Singer Gallery. So if we ever did do something that we wanted more space for an exhibition, we have this contiguous space that could do larger shows. So that is really an overview of the concepts for the main building. And now we move on to the Education Center, the Key Street site. And once again, I'm way behind my notes here. So here, the architects have been working to preserve the industrial character of the buildings while also incorporating some Southern vernacular architectural features, mainly the veranda. So when you start looking at renderings, they were working with the enfilade and with the historic building, and with this, they're really interested in the idea of the veranda. And they're also interested in making the pieces of this site work together. So I think some of you have been over there with me. There is a main building that is about 12,000 square feet on 2 floors. To the left here, with the kind of clunky decks on the front of it, is the former stables. And to the right, that you're only looking at that sort of blank wall of, is the garage. And so each of those spaces will have their own new function. Looking quickly at the ground floor plan of the main building, we're really seeing that 12,000 square foot main building as being our education center. So we're moving a lot of our teaching and our hands-on activities here. So if a school group comes, they can take a tour of the collection, they can come over to the education center and have lunch and then do an activity afterwards. We have no place to feed the kids now. So the garage here at the Key Street site is going to be a place where they can do brown bag lunches during the day. So we get to spend more time with the kids. They usually leave in about an hour now. So the first floor has an entrance to the education center with a lobby gallery where you might see student work or students working in collaboration with a visiting artist. And then the right side there is more community space. So we need a place. If you've been to the museum and sat in our library, we sometimes cram 25. The mayor has been there, and he has seen how we do 2 rows of seating in the library for our board meetings, and we really need a better meeting space. So we will have a place there where you can sit 40 people and have good AV capability for presentations, but that would also be available for community use, or if somebody wants to do a retreat and get their folks off site for the day. But it also could be an adult classroom for programs for adults. So it becomes a kind of little mini sort of conference center over here, as well as moving our facilities manager to this building, because by doing that, we pick up the rest of the museum basement and have more collection storage at the main building. So that is something I didn't mention before. And then the second floor of the education center, we're imagining you go upstairs from that lobby gallery and you're in a sort of open studio space where there might be artist demonstrations, there might be less formal classes, drop-in activities for families, and then there are offices for our teachers and educators, and some classroom space that can be divided up into smaller or one large space or smaller spaces there for teaching. And now we are moving on to the stables, which is really imagined as an artist in residence site, with the first floor being a place where either there would be an exhibition of contemporary artwork, or you would be able to see the artist working on something, and the second floor being a living space for them. And there is a little pump house on the site, which is what it says calls the kiln shed here. At the museum right now, you can't do hot work like that because it would endanger the collection, but it is okay to go ahead and have a kiln over here at this site. So now the fun stuff. This is a rendering of the exterior where you see the main building. They are putting a veranda across the whole first floor and then a partial veranda on the second floor. And this way, by having some circulation on the outside of the building, we preserve a little more interior space for use. And this gorgeous hillside is a wonderful spot for outdoor events and activities. And when we have kids for summer camp, letting them play outside, and it will be fenced and it will be safe. So we're excited about that. And you can see a little bit of the garage there at the right too. And here is an evening rendering of, I would say I want to be at whatever party we hold there. And I see that the architects decided to name it after Elizabeth and Jonathan Hager, but we're hoping to put someone else's name on this eventually as we continue to raise money to make this project happen. And then here are some interior renderings as well. So this is an imagining of what that lobby gallery would look like when you walk in, with a mix of maybe student work and contemporary artwork. And then the second floor with that open studio space where there will maybe be pottery wheels, maybe sewing machines, maybe 3D printers, different things that can engage people in making or watching demonstrations. And that little back door that is shown being open, there actually will be a path there for people who are doing pottery to get back and forth easily to the kiln. And then this is a rendering of the inside of the garage as a lunch space. And I will say it will probably not look like this, because what we need is really flexible furniture that we can move in and out, because I think in the evening this is an event space and it needs to be able to be sophisticated in the evening for parties and events, but casual in the daytime for kids to have their brown bag lunches. And then this just lists some of the things that could be happening on the campus. I think a lot of these I've mentioned already as we have gone through here. But a key thing, right now we also do, the Saturday morning youth program, which is a beloved 91-year tradition in the community, and it's done, by application and with a wait list, and it's wonderfully, it is grant funded, so it is free to the kids who get in. We do it 3 times a year for 8 weeks, so about half the year we've got the elementary school kids in the classroom. We could do more. If we can find the funding, if we can build our funding, we can do 2 Saturday morning youth program sessions instead of just 1 with the additional classroom space. And then this is actually a slide. You can tell it kind of change in graphic tone here. This was pulled from our landscape architects, Olin, who are Philadelphia based, and they've done some very high profile projects. In addition to the Gateway Arch Museum I mentioned, they have done the Folger Shakespeare Library Gardens that just reopened. And basically, they're saying all the things my prior slide said. These are all the things that can happen, but with our increased green space, we can do more outdoor things and we can do more environmentally focused things as well. And there's an overview of bird's eye view of the green space associated with the education center. And it's really wonderful big lawn space. And then this is the slide. This is where you can see some ambition and vision in this slide. And in all honesty, I love this. If you're looking, it is reshaping the park in an incredibly exciting way because it's picking up all this additional lakefront by having folks, by eliminating what is now called Museum Drive and having folks turn straight into the Digby lot. And therefore you get a lot more lakefront for people to enjoy and have, green space there. And I love it, but it's the city's park, right? So we have our building and we have the Key Street building and we have space in between that we want to make sense and to feel good for people who are walking between the two. But it's not really my job to remake the park. As beautiful as that might be. So I wanted to share this potential with all of you, this idea, which is a really ambitious, exciting idea. It is, I think, it would be a huge benefit to the community to have more enjoyable lakefront space. On paper, as we've been working with the architects, phase 1 is the renovation and transformation of the Key Street site and creation of the education center. Phase 2 are the alterations to our main building. And we're calling this phase 3. I don't know what potential there is to make phase 3 happen, but maybe maybe the city will be excited. Maybe there are doors we can open together. I don't know if there are funding sources like Project Open Space, or if there's a possibility of a bond bill, or if there's a major donor out there, maybe watching this on live stream right now. Who is interested in transforming our park. But I think it's worth sharing this vision because I think it's a vision that benefits everyone. Obviously, I'm really concerned about the museum and its mission, but I love what the museum can do to transform the community. So I'm going to move on from there. I don't have much else. But this is one of my favorite quotes from someone on Google. We all know how special the museum is. We know that it's time for this next phase of generational growth. We know we can do what we do better and for more people, as this slide says, from children to scholars. And some of the ways, other examples of things we have done community-based. On the left is the exhibition we did on the history of the Jonathan Street neighborhood. On the right are some kids from Fort Ritchie at camp. We want everyone to feel welcome at the museum, to leave enriched at the museum. And one of my favorite quotes here, the arts are the opposite of a diversion from reality. They might just be the most realistic glimpse we ever get into the nature and meaning of life. And if you make time for consuming and producing art, the same way you make time for work and exercise and family commitments, you'll find your life fuller and happier. So I believe, arts and culture is truly a catalytic, transformative community investment that works for the community and works for all of us internally. And that's what I wanted to share.
And so I'll just say there are two things that we're kind of looking at. Eric and I participated in a virtual meeting with the design team, and Sarah and Rodney Tishio is also part of that, was part of that meeting. One thing we need to look at is the change in access. With Museum Drive, it's kind of a Y-shaped entrance that comes together and heads to the museum now. We just need to take a look at how this is going to function if now you're coming in through the Digby lot instead of having that access. And I think that it is exciting to think about reclaiming lakefronts and opening that lakefront area up as part of the park. We do need to think about practicalities for maintenance for the Parks and Rec staff and things that they need to be able to get to through that space. So that's one thing we need to work through with the design team going forward. The other concern is parking. With the scheme that is shown on this rendering, there's actually going to be a net loss in parking right there close to the museum. Now, we are planning on, in September, starting construction on the Burnap parking lot up at the top of the hill beside the tennis courts, which is going to provide some additional parking for the park. But I think that that's something that we really want to take a hard look at, because why have this tremendous amenity there, but you can't can't easily access it. So I think those are, at this point, those are the city staff concerns.
Right. And I put this image back up, and we did also talk briefly in our meeting about, creating a crosswalk in the area by the Key Street building for when people are walking. My concern with parking is more event related. I think I've said this before. It's when we have an event and we're expecting 200 or 250 people, and not like Friday night, which is people hanging out and, sometimes taking their shoes off and dancing in the garden. They can walk a couple blocks, but it's when we have something where people are wearing high heels and are dressed up and they don't want to have to walk 2 blocks to get to the event and already have their feet hurt. So we've been doing a little exploration of hiring shuttle service for those evenings. If there was a valet parking company in town, that might be an obvious choice for fancy museum events. But I really think the parking issue is more of an event-based thing than everyday thing.
If you're looking at financing as far as bond bills go, we're coming up on community coalition time again. This would be a good piece of legislation we could put in front of the delegation. We'd have to get more specific on how much and what it would go towards. But that would be something that the city, if you'd be so willing, could get behind and present as part of our coalition.
And we just,
Objectives.
Jim Kercheval was just at an event we did recently and had a nice
Okay.
tour. So we have talked about sort of filling him in
Oh, good.
at
Okay,
a higher
good.
level on what we're doing here.
Well, I can't believe it's been 2 years. That was fast, but very exciting to see the designs. I toured Stables a couple years ago and I wore heels. That was a bad idea, especially with those steep steps. So don't wear heels during tours,
If you
y'all.
go over, yes.
If you go. But I'm really excited to see the design for overall expansion. And I'm also happy to hear that you're expanding programs for the teens. That's really big for me, but great work.
We have
Looks
over
really
the
good.
last 2 years, we have the free youth programming has really expanded. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
And-
really
and-
excited that the education center can be used, because being on the planning commission, I looked at those plans a while back. And I appreciate the recent tour you gave me of the museum and all the things you guys are working on in there too, so.
Would you, is there a way that we can possibly do another tour of the stables?
Absolutely.
And, sorry, I missed that last event Friday. I wanted to come. It looked like it was an
It was
amazing event. I
so
was
fun.
out of town for basketball. But in the plans, would it ever be an opportunity to maybe incorporate even like a small cafe?
So what it's like more money, right? But we talked early on, and we have a couple places where we know, like, okay, there's plumbing access here if we wanted to add a cafe. So in the main building, it's possible in that reception area lobby, because there would be access to water. And potentially, I mean, the kids need a place for brown bag lunch, but potentially the garage could be somehow perhaps adapted to being a cafe. And I'd love to see, seating on the roof of the garage, although not on a day like today.
The museum just gives me cafe vibes.
Yes,
You
no,
kinda
and
just sit
I
really
think there are
enjoy it.
things we can do, depending on how much of a priority it is. And, I think there are things we can do sooner rather than later in terms of, I have hired coffee carts for special events. So maybe we actually figure out a way to buy a coffee cart and we do simple food and, and coffee at least. Because, we all know in this room that you can easily spend more than 2 hours at the museum. And if you go to see the Frida Kahlo exhibition now and you're spending an hour and 15 minutes, in that show, you maybe want to sit down for a minute and then go see the collection. I think we also putting a cold case in our store and having some cold drinks and granola bars for parents. I think that's something, I can probably address this fiscal year.
Because I think National Portrait Grad, I don't know, I think they did have like refreshments in like their gift shop or something.
Yeah, it's at least, I've been there. I've been there with a kid who needs to get their blood sugar up because they're getting really cranky. And I've been there with adults who need to get their blood sugar up because they're getting really cranky.
That's all I had. I just wanted to say I've been able to sit in with a couple of the art camps, and it's very much needed, and them kids do really well.
The work in the hallway right now, we did the full week Frida Kahlo camp, and the hallway is full of their work. It's wonderful. It is really, and people are getting so much joy walking down that hallway, looking at the children's work before they go into the exhibition. It's just enhancing everyone's experience there. Yeah, it's really delightful. And it is like, if something's going on, we have to say no to the next person who wants to do something. So we want to be able to
A
say
group
yes
of
more.
them, actually, that was in the one summer camp, came to my shop, and I taught them how to decorate strawberries, so.
Oh, that's right.
Yes, art full circle. They walked from the Takesha had them. And they walked
So the middle school
downtown
kids,
and they
yeah.
took like
We
the
use the
whole
cultural
art.
trail a lot
Yes,
with
they
the
took the
kids. We do.
culture trail and came to the shop
We
and
do indeed.
they loved it. So it was a good group of kids.
Well, anybody who wants to come have a walkthrough, just contact me. We'll set up a time, whether it's one-on-one or whether we bring a group together.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Jim. Okay, next up, we're going to go over a preliminary agenda review for next week's regular session, our 16th voting session. First up, we'll have call to order, our invocation, pledge to the flag, announcements, rules of procedure effective December 17th, 2024. Use of cell phones during meetings is restricted. All correspondence for distribution to elected officials should be provided to the city clerk and should include a copy for the city clerk for inclusion in the official record. Our next meeting schedules are Tuesday, August 5th, 2025, work session at 4 p.m. Tuesday, August 12th, 2025, work session at 4 p.m. Tuesday, August 19th, 2025, work session at 4 p.m. And Tuesday, August 26th, 2025, regular session at 7 p.m.
And also on the 5th is National Night Out, so it's going to be a very short meeting that night. You'll be out of here by 4:45.
Thank you.
We'll have appointments, Ethics Commission and Historic District Commission. Of course, we'll have agenda item citizen comments and be reminded that those topics are listed for consideration on the agenda only and limited to 3 minutes. We'll approve our minutes for May 6th, May 13th, May 15th, May 20th, May 27th, June 3rd, June 10th, and June 17th, 2025. Our consent agenda. First, City Clerk. Granicus Meeting Management Subscription Renewal for year 2 of 3. Granicus, Denver, Colorado, $25,310.24. Under Engineering, we'll have Burnett Parking Lot Improvements at City Park. Patton Construction Company, Lanham, Maryland, $500,000. FY26 Pavement Preservation Contract, Craig Paving, Hagerstown, Maryland, $1,500,000. Under Fire, we'll have Mercedes Kraken Exo Fire Hose for Engine 2, Whitmer Public Safety Group, Coatesville, Pennsylvania, $33,235.92. Under Human Resources, Local Government Insurance Trust, Liability and Property Insurance, LGIT, Hanover, Maryland, $918,045. Under Information Technology, Annual Renewal for Munis DB Support Software Licensing Module, Tyler Technologies, Dallas, Texas, $318,334.12. IntelliTime Annual Software and Maintenance Renewal, IntelliTime Systems Corporation, Santa Ana, California, $76,979.65. Annual ESRI GIS Software Renewal, ESRI Incorporated, Redlands, California, $39,700. Ninja RMM Renewal, Software House International, Piscataway, New Jersey, $14,075. And Glessner Annual Maintenance Prepaid Labor Renewal, Glessner Technologies, Hagerstown, Maryland, $26,748. Under Public Works, Maintenance Agreement, Janitorial Services at multiple locations, Ragland Cleaning Services, Hagerstown, Maryland, $52,780. Under Utilities, Water, Breaker Reconditioning at RC Wilson Water Plant, Capital Electric, Upper Marlboro, Maryland, $28,500. MCC Maintenance at RC Wilson Water Plant, Capital Electric, Upper Marlboro, Maryland, $45,750. Ford F-150 to replace Unit 200. Hertrick Fleet Services Incorporated, Milford, Delaware, $46,076. F-150 to replace Unit 203, Hertrick Fleet Services Incorporated, Milford, Delaware, $46,076. Under wastewater, Pellitzer Engineering Services, Black and Beach Corporation, Gaithersburg, Maryland, $380,655. Underwater wastewater, miscellaneous engineering services, Black and Beach Corporation, Gaithersburg, Maryland, $250,000. Under wastewater, FY26 Pellitzer Facility Asset Management Fee, New England Fertilizer Company, North Quincy, Massachusetts, $107,925.78. And under wastewater, scrubber chemicals for odor control system, Source Technologies, Lexington, Kentucky, $28,800. There is no unfinished business. Under new business, we'll have approval of a resolution, parking lease for Department Juvenile Services, approval of a resolution, operating agreement with Hagerstown Ice Amateur Athletic Association, approval of a resolution, Electric Vehicle Institute Charging Services Agreement, approval of a resolution, approval of the State of Maryland MEDAAF Conditional Loan for NewCold, approval of a resolution, revised subrecipient agreement for Main Street Startup Grant Program, approval of a resolution, CDBG 5-year Consolidated Plan and FY26 Annual Action Plan, approval of a resolution, monthly speed camera contract, approval of a resolution, monthly speed camera collection services, approval of annual Bay Restoration Fund grant application, approval to accept warrant apprehension program grant, and approval to accept Maryland Criminal Intelligence Network grant. Again, we'll have our general citizen comments, and again, they will be limited to 3 minutes. We'll have our city administrator comments, mayor and city council comments, and then we will adjourn. Okay, we got through that. Next up is our 10-year downtown plan update with Emily Conrad and Jill Thompson.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you for having us today. I'm going to pass out the PowerPoint presentation we'll be going over. Any more? Thank you. All right. My name is Emily Conrad. I'm Economic Development Coordinator for the Department of Planning and Economic Development. And we are here today to talk about the 10-year downtown plan. There was a 10-year downtown plan that happened in 2014, and it helped spur private and public investment in the downtown city center. And you've seen a lot of significant development over that time. At that time, we worked with a consultant called Urban Partners, who we are working with again this time. So they are working in partnership with a other company called MKSK, and we have their principal here today virtually, Christopher Lankenau. Thanks for joining us, Christopher.
Absolutely. Hi, everybody.
Hello. He's going to go over an update of where we stand with that plan. We started working with them in April and plan to continue to work with them until about December. We are currently in the process of getting community feedback. We started today with our community roundtable discussions, and we also have a survey that is open to the public for people to comment. You can go to the website, mydowntownhagerstown.com, and find that survey and more information about the plan. And with that, I'll pass it over to Christopher Lankenau.
Thank you, Emily. Let me share my screen and I can go through that with you as well. This is always a challenge for me. There we go. Can everybody see that?
No, not yet.
Great. Thanks again. Emily, you said it great. I don't need to say anything more. Just kidding. Well, thanks, Mayor and Council, for having me. Again, I'm Chris Lankenau with Urban Partners. As Emily mentioned, we had the pleasure of working with the city about 10 years ago on the first plan, the city's downtown plan. You've done a lot of great work. You've implemented almost every project you had outlined in the plan. We're the city kept in touch with us, which was great to hear kind of your successes over the years. So it's been really great, and it's been thrilling to be hired back. So we're so happy to be here. Just to give you a quick recap of who we are, we're based in Philadelphia. We're a small planning firm, and we focus really on implementation. We want to make sure projects are feasible, and we focus on revitalization. So we're the lead consultant. We always provide an assessment of the real estate market as part of our work to make sure that everything we recommend is sound in that regard and feasible. So since that will be the focus of this project, we are the lead. As Emily mentioned, we're teaming with MKSK. They are a very talented firm throughout the country. We're working with their DC and Atlanta offices on this project. They're urban designers, landscape architects. They do excellent community outreach as well as their urban design. So they're really leading up the outreach portion of the plan right now, which is kind of in full force since we're pretty early in the process, and we wanted to get that underway first. So that is who we are. So the name of the project we branded is My Downtown Hagerstown, which I think is a really great all-encompassing name for the project. We want it to be a community-based plan. We want as much input as we can, even though we think in the end it's going to have a revitalization and implementation and development focus. We are charged with, again, assessing the market conditions, which we did 10 years ago, but a lot has changed in 10 years. So we want to see, where things stand in terms of the retail, housing, the commercial, entertainment, hotel. We'll take a look at all of that so we understand, what some of the opportunities are before we start getting too far down the planning, road there. We will also, based on that market assessment, come up with a series of catalytic projects, kind of like we did last time. What are 5 or 8 projects that we really think, again, with the community's feedback, could make a big difference in continuing the revitalization of downtown Hagerstown. MKSK will complete a series of renderings for those projects. So that's one thing we didn't really have last time. And I think that's really important to get the community excited about ideas that we think could really come to fruition so they can see what they might look like. Again, we'll look at the kind of the cost benefit analysis of these. So if we're soliciting developer interest, we have a good sense of whether these really would pencil out before we go too far into getting, folks involved with the development community. And then as part of this whole thing, understanding that, downtown is connected to neighborhoods. It's really the focus of the city, but it's a part of the greater city. We want to ensure that downtown continues to be connected to the surrounding areas, whether it's through, literally through paths, if it's, metaphorically through, design or events, that kind of thing. But we'll take a look at how we can connect downtown to the surrounding neighborhoods and some of the activities taking place there. So in the end, we want this to be a really implementable tool for this city that we can continue to, solicit support of the community and really continue the attraction of investors in downtown Hagerstown as it has been over the last 10 years. To give you a sense of our study area, not surprising, since it's the downtown plan, we're focusing on the downtown. This is the borders can be considered not necessarily permanent, since again, we're connected to all the surrounding areas, but we had to draw a line somewhere. But again, we will ensure that our efforts connect to the surrounding areas. But this is really the prime focus of the study area, lining up mostly with the arts and cultural district and, the downtown zoning. So that gives you a sense of where we'll be focused. The project timeline. So as Emily mentioned, we started in April. At the end of April, we came and met with the city and did a site tour, which was great. We walked all over the downtown. It was a beautiful day to just, to reacquaint ourselves with what's changed and how things have progressed. We have since begun looking at, data, demographic, economic trends, some of the background information. So that's more or less complete. Phase 2 really is the engagement phase, which is well underway. There's a project website, as Emily mentioned, myhagerstown.com. We encourage you to take a look at that. Everything you need to know about the project is there, and you can get involved with the project through that website. There are online interactive activities through the website. There's an online map that allows you to pick areas that you would like to see improvement or areas that you particularly enjoy about Hagerstown. There's also an online survey, which we'd love for you to complete. And I believe we have about 350 surveys completed to date, which is great. We have some pop-up events throughout the summer. We completed a community visioning workshop last month. I believe it was June 26th. We had great turnout. We had boards and interactive activities. People could answer questions and pick some of the types of development and activities in downtown that they liked. And we are underway with the stakeholder roundtables as well. Phase 3 is beginning the market analysis. We really have begun that, so we're kind of in between phase 2 and phase 3. We will culminate phase 3 with another community workshop to update folks on those findings as we then launch into phase 4, which is really the implementation phase. So based on the market findings and the community feedback and the roundtable discussions, what are some really, catalytic projects that we think would be ideal for downtown, and do we think they are feasible, and what would they look like, and all that, and how can we get the development community interested and involved? And then we'll end it, as Emily said, in November, December, with a final presentation before you all, and hopefully a plan adoption. So that's the timeline in a nutshell. Real quick, the roundtables that began today, good timing. We had 2 this morning, community development and arts, culture, tourism, and education. Great feedback, as you can imagine. The city was really helpful in organizing these and categorizing key folks in the community into these groups that we thought made the most sense based on their expertise and their day-to-day work, so we can get their feedback in a group setting. So far, it's been great. We've been getting good feedback. We did actually have, I'll show you that in a second, but so you can see over the next 2 weeks, we've got a total of 9 roundtables, including the youth tomorrow afternoon and the young professionals. So that, as I recall, when we did that 10 years ago, we had really interesting feedback from young people. So looking forward to that, because they always have great ideas that some of us adults don't always think about. So, and the downtown's for them as well. So that'll be really interesting. And yeah, what I was going to say is we did have an in-person roundtable discussion back in June when we were in town for the community visioning workshop. So we were able to sneak in an in-person meeting with Main Street businesses, got some of their feedback, ideas, concerns about downtown. So that was really informative. And then we plan to offer to both City Council, the mayor, other elected officials, including, Washington County and state reps as necessary, to do one-on-ones with them. So we can set up, one-on-one interviews to get their feedback, so folks can be candid and tell us what's on their mind. So we will organize those as well. So lots of good feedback, both in group and individual settings. And this is how you can, if you're not involved, find out more about what's going on. Again, we've got the 3 community meetings, one of which we've had, the second of which will be in August or September. We have some community events, as I mentioned, throughout the summer. The first one is coming up on the 19th at the Flying Boxcars game, which is great. We will have a table set up with information. I believe folks can take a survey on the spot. There'll be, some handouts, maps. So feel free to stop by if you're going to the game. And then, as I mentioned, the website is a great resource for information and sharing your thoughts on the project. So, please use that as a way to participate. It's a really great resource. So, and with that, that's that's the update in a nutshell. Again, we're pretty early in the process. We'll have a lot more to report on with you next time we see you. But we wanted to give you a sense of where we are, where we're headed, and I'd love to take any questions you may have.
The session for today will
Yes,
community development.
yes, it was great to have the feedback from different stakeholders in the community. Community development one had a lot of nonprofits in it, so it was great to get to hear all that feedback.
Yeah, each one has its own kind of twist, which is great, you know, based on the expertise of the people involved. So it's good to hear some common themes, but then each group has a different, usually a different impression or some different thoughts. So
Sorry, quick question. Are they held at the same locations? All
They're
the meetings?
virtually.
Okay, they're all.
yeah, they're all virtual.
I got the invite, I couldn't go or whatever.
So if people were not able to make it virtually, we gave them options for other meeting times. The questions are the same, just the composition of participants is sort of relevant to their field.
Yeah. And the participation's been great, not to interject, but we had about 20 people on the arts and culture meeting. We had about 12 or 15 on community development. So we've the acceptance rate has been very good. We're pleased about the participation. In the end, we may have about over 100 folks participating in the roundtable. So I think that's fantastic.
I like that you guys are attending like events to get more feedback. I was just curious, are you going out to any local facilities? Like the big one would be the Boys and Girls Club, right? To get as much input from them as you can. What's another one that would be considered a downtown boundary? I'm trying to think, because I was going to say the YMCA, but then they would be outside.
The Boys and Girls Club were represented in the meeting this morning.
Oh,
from
great,
Community Development one. So we've invited all of our key
Okay.
stakeholders to the roundtable discussions and invited them to send anyone from their team if the leader happened to be unavailable. So,
Okay.
yeah.
I do want to ask, when you hold another community event. So I went to the last one we had. I feel like it was really good turnout. The only thing, and a couple people said it, is they thought they were going to have a voice at that particular one, like be able to ask questions, you know, like kind of like Q&As, and they didn't get that. So with the next one, could you consider doing that? You know, when community comes, so they can ask them questions, so they can understand better. Because I think a lot of times people go to these and they don't really understand it fully, but if they're able to ask them questions, they can kind of get a better understanding.
Yeah, I think Chris can clarify, but I think the next public presentation is a presentation format with Q&A. The first one was designed as an open house where you wander
Right.
through the stations in the room and engage with the staff that were at each of the stations. But great feedback. We know it was a different format,
Right.
it being an open house, but the presentation format is coming up in the next one.
Yeah, the reason for that was since we just started, we had nothing really to present. We wanted to start with open ears and listen. You know, so we we got a lot of questions actually, and I thought we answered a lot of questions. So my impression was we did answer a lot of questions. So yeah, and again, we didn't have a presentation yet because it's just the beginning of the project. So we wanted to not have any preconceived notions. We wanted to just start by saying, all right, you know, what's on people's mind here. So I thought it was pretty effective in doing that.
And I think this is important for this 10-year plan, that getting the feedback from the stakeholders is really important, and using technology today versus 2014, where you can attend these meetings virtually and you can complete a survey and still show up at the other community events. So I think that's kudos to even putting that together and making sure to capture all interests for this 10-year plan. So I wasn't part of the last one, but we definitely made it clear, at least for these recent administrations that we wanted to make sure that we get feedback from many people as possible when we're talking about strategic planning for the future. So I just want to say thank you guys thank you, Lauren, for pushing us forward.
And I would offer, if there is any resident or business owner out there that would like an overview before they fill out the survey or before they use the online tools, they can set up a phone meeting or an in-person meeting with our team, and we're happy to walk them through what it is that the goals of and an overview of the project.
Thank you. Is there a deadline for the survey?
That's a great question. I was going to say if I remember, but I don't think that, Jill, do you recall, or Emily?
Because it's just like different phases, but.
Yeah, I don't know that we've published a deadline, and I think
Yeah, I
there's
don't think
still,
so.
several weeks that people
Yeah.
can participate.
At least through the end of the month, if not into, I mean, there's no hurry. So at least into August for sure. So people have at least a few more weeks to fill that out. So yeah, we want to get as many responses as possible. So
Did he say August? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
There's not a
Yes.
firm
He didn't say,
deadline at
okay.
this time, but definitely through August is what I'm hearing.
Okay.
yeah.
And for the people at home, if you'd like to take that survey, again, the website is mydowntownhagerstown.com.
Okay. And I just kind of have a remark, and this is kind of out of the box, and it's completely okay on what you say, but I just kind of have to throw it out there. Would it be possible to have all the high school students that are considered in that boundary partake in that survey? Almost like I don't want to say mandatory, but kind of like when they're headed back to school, that's one of the first things that they get done, because this project is geared towards their future. And to come up with a 10-year plan and to not include the ages of 14 to 16 makes no sense to me. So I don't know if I'm pushing that a little too far, just throwing it out there. If that were to be possible, only because we don't have a deadline in place as of right now. From what I'm hearing is that there's no survey deadline. So if you could reconsider a deadline, would it be like second week of September, third week of September, just to try to incorporate those? So that would be what? Could South High, North High partake in those surveys or no? Because technically they live within the boundary of downtown, and you know, their input is going to mean a lot on what they want to see in the next 10 years.
There's a session for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right?
So here's the thing is, there's a session, but it doesn't mean that they're going to attend. When they're in school and it's being passed out, it's almost like, I need you to fill out this survey. It's like, it's a different approach, like a different tactic. Yeah.
It's something we can
Okay.
consider. I think also we can, with our outreach messaging and our social media, we can encourage readers to invite their children to answer
Partake.
the survey also, that it isn't just for parents, but encourage parents to
Yeah.
engage their children in answering the survey.
Maybe get the youth
Yeah.
council involved.
And
Yeah.
the youth council,
Yeah.
Yeah, the meeting for tomorrow for youth and young professionals includes the current youth council and the last youth council. All of the student participants as well as the advisors, and representing young professionals, we have the Chamber Gen Next group, which was over 100 young professionals under the age of 39.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you.
Yeah, I think I
Thank
broke
you.
all the boxes.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Christopher.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Next up, Jill Stan here for State of Maryland Conditional Loan NewCold.
So we have an opportunity to support through a resolution the Maryland Economic Assistance Authority Fund, or MEDAAF, that would benefit NewCold. And this program is administered by the State Department of Commerce, and it is a conditional loan of $1 million to the business. And they're located at 45 West Oak Ridge Drive. This is a large warehouse distribution with high technology refrigeration, cold storage warehouse. The investment of the company into the community is $275 million with a state-of-the-art facility and the creation of 125 to 150 jobs. This requires no financial obligation on the part of the city. The state is working directly with the company. They simply ask for a resolution showing that the city is in support of the project, and they handle all of the arrangements between the state and the company with no money flowing through the city. And so I'm happy to answer any questions. There's a motion and a resolution attached to the work session memo. And we would have this on for approval next week if you're in support.
I am in support of it. Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks. Next up, we have the Community Development Block Grant, 5-year consolidated plan and FY26 annual action plan. Margi Joe and Rachel Paul.
Here again. As many of you know by now, City of Hagerstown is an entitlement community for the Community Development Block Grant Program, or CDBG. This is a program of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD. Each year, we're required to submit an annual action plan to HUD that acts as our guidebook for the funding that we're expecting to receive. And this plan outlines the projects that we intend to undertake and the funding that we've allocated to each project. So the annual action plan is part of a larger 5-year consolidated plan that is required by HUD every 5 years. FY26 marks the beginning of the next 5-year plan and has been developed after extensive research and review of data to determine the most pressing needs for the city that can be addressed by HUD funding. We've been notified by HUD that our grant entitlement amount for FY26 will be $791,400, and we estimate that our program income for the coming year will be $75,000. FY26 will also mark the first year that the city will receive funding through HUD's Home Investment Partnerships Program in the amount of $361,181.17. In the first year, the city has agreed to provide a match amount of $138,818.83 to qualify as a participating jurisdiction in this program. Mayor and City Council's approval of the consolidated plan and the annual action plan is required to request and receive our annual entitlement. And our department is required to submit the approved con plan and annual action plan no later than August 16th.
Public input was part of the process to develop the consolidated plan and the annual action plan. Our first public hearing took place on December 5th, 2024, and kicked off the public service application process. Our consultants for the consolidated plan conducted numerous interviews with community partners and city departments and coordinated a resident survey, as well as collecting and interpreting local and regional data around those populations prioritized for HUD funding support. A second public hearing is scheduled for tomorrow, Wednesday, July 16th. The annual action, which will be held at council chambers at 5:30 p.m. for anybody listening who'd like to attend. The annual action plan has been on display for a public comment period since June 18th and will continue until this Friday, July 18th. Any comments received during this period will be passed along to this body and incorporated within the final plan sent to HUD.
So the summary of planned activities and funding amounts has been included in your packet. These are similar to the activities that we focused on in previous years. The CDBG portion of the plan supports multiple neighborhood-based programs for income-qualified applicants through homeowner repair grants and loans and home buyer down payment assistance. CDBG also supports neighborhood revitalization through public facility and engineering projects, such as sidewalk repair and upgrades, repaving projects, and park and playground creation and rehabilitation. The home portion of the plan focuses primarily on housing concerns, and in the early stages of our participation, we're focusing mostly on home rehabilitation and home ownership programs. And these programs will be administered by DHCD staff.
The plan provides funding to nonprofit community partners through subrecipient agreements. These organizations provide services to city residents and special needs groups, such as our homeless population, senior citizens, and area youth. Staff recommendation is for the consolidated plan and annual action plan to be adopted as presented during the public comment period. We've included the draft motion and resolution in your packets for the vote expected at next week's July 22nd regular session. Approval of the plan would allow us to submit our formal application to HUD to release the entitlement funding. We're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Well, we're excited, and thank you for all your hard work. Just a question, I guess, for the public, being that it's approved and you guys receive the entitlement funds, how soon can the public begin to apply for any of those assistance or those funds?
Immediately.
Immediately.
Yeah, for existing programs. With the home funding, we will have to develop a couple programs that will comply with the different regulations that might be in place as opposed to CDBG. But
And as the home program is concerned, it is on shaky ground in Congress right now as to whether it gets approved or not. CDBG is pretty safe, but home is not. So some of us are going down to DC next Wednesday, and some of you as well. This is one of the topics that we will need to speak to our delegation, who at this point in time, we have Congresswoman Delaney, who is going to meet with us, looking for Van Hall and also Brooks to participate as well. But then we are also going to be meeting with the intergovernmental group at the White House also on that day. So these are the kind of topics our lobbyist is going to give us talking points by the end of the week that we'll be able to go and have these discussions with them to try to get some of this funding secured.
Thank you for that.
Anything else?
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Oh, not so fast.
Okay.
To stay here, request the extension of timeline and scope of service for Hagerstown Neighborhood Development Partnership, FY24 CDBG subrecipient.
So the Hagerstown Neighborhood Development Partnership, or HNDP, administers a CDBG-funded program that provides down payment assistance to income-qualified first-time homebuyers. HNDP was awarded funding of $28,000 for the FY24 fiscal year. However, during that time, they experienced a prolonged period of key staff vacancies and turnover. As a result, activity in the program slowed considerably, and the funding has not yet been utilized. Over the last several months, HNDP has returned to consistent operation with full staff, and they would like to request additional time to use their funding. They have requested an extension through December 31st of 2025. In addition, they would like to request an amendment to their scope of service that would allow them to increase the assistance provided to each home buyer. And currently, their grant assistance is capped at $3,500 per home buyer, and they would like to raise this cap to $5,000 to provide greater impact. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Are there any questions I can answer?
Fine with me.
It's not on the preliminary agenda, but it will be for next week.
Next week.
Consideration.
Yeah, thank you.
Nice to see them active again,
Yeah.
because they provide a great service.
And they're, the staff that's there now, they're very enthusiastic about what they're doing, and they have really been diving in to bring it back to where they were before, so.
Thanks.
Great, thank you.
Next up, we have the Municipal Infractions Fee Schedule, Maryland State Law Changes. Mr. Paul Fulk.
All right. Not quite good evening yet, because it's like 6 o'clock, right? So good afternoon, I guess. I don't know. All right. So something that we want to bring to the council's attention here is that the Maryland General Assembly at the last legislation session, they did pass a bill, House Bill 8 or Senate Bill 820 and House Bill 1506 for those that were tracking it. But the governor signed it into law here that it becomes effective on October 1 of raising municipal infraction citations from $1,000 to $5,000, which gives local jurisdictions then the ability to amend their codes if they want to increase the fine amounts. It's been $1,000 in state law since 1973, from what I could track back to the Maryland laws. If you did inflation, that would actually be a little over $7,500 would actually be the max if you did it from inflation calculator to now. But they did increase it to $5,000. That's been something that jurisdictions have been concerned about for quite some time, because many times people just pay the citations rather than making corrections to their homes or whatever based on my field. So with this ability, the city can actually amend local ordinances. And there are 5 that I listed out that are underneath the control of our department that we would want to consider. Those being the property maintenance code, which part of the exhibit 1 that I attached is the specifics of those codes. So the property maintenance code lists a penalty there that you can receive a municipal infraction citation, and the fine amounts for those vary between $100 to $1,000. Nuisance abatements, which is $185, that penalty is not to exceed $500 based on how the current law is written. For rental facilities ordinances, those are for $1,000, but we have a prepaid fine amount of $500. And then for vacant structures, because they're 2 ordinances, but it's basically the same program, just 2 different ordinances that we have where they could be up to $1,000 or $500 for those. So what this law allows local jurisdictions then to increase those fine amounts if we were looking at that. Now, we're proposing different ideas here to the elected body, but I want to kind of go over some terminology, because sometimes when you live in this type of a world, the terms that we use on a day-to-day basis may not be something that you're familiar with, because sometimes you may, as an elected official, receive a call that say, hey, I got a citation for something, and generally that didn't mean they received a citation. They actually received a notice of violation for something. So when we issue a notice of violation, that is telling someone that they violated a city code and that they need to make corrections by a particular timeline. Now, on those notices of violation, there could be multiple codes cited. So we might actually cite multiple ones telling someone that maybe they need to, repair a porch, and that they might have a broken window. So that could be 2 examples that would be on one notice that we would issue. And then when they would fail to make a correction, the city has the ability to issue a fine based on how the city charter is written for those violations. And they could receive a fine for each code that's being violated. So that means they could receive a fine for the porch violation, and they could receive a fine for the window violation as well. So those are ones that when we say infraction or citation, those are actually fines. When someone gets a notice, a lot of times the general public refers to it as a citation, but that's actually a notice. They have not received any fine. They're being told they need to make a repair to their property. So what we're proposing is that there wouldn't be any type of fee escalation based on any of these ones being proposed until it was a separate offense. So an offense would mean that if I cited someone telling them that they needed to make a repair to the property, and it was the porches and the windows, and let's say they failed to do so, then we would issue fines for those. Say we went to court, they make corrections, it's a few months later, they have a different violation at the property, or maybe the same one, maybe another window got broken or something. It's a separate offense. It would be a new notice of violation to them. If they fail to make the correction again, then we would potentially escalate those fine amounts then on the next offense, and so on. So it would be slowly escalated. It wouldn't go by the number of codes being violated. It would be on the number of offenses at a property over a certain time period. Then also it would be, at times, I would love to say that if we issue a notice to someone and then we happen to get down to the fine route where we issued someone a fine and we went to court and the judge found in our favor, as the city's favor, and they didn't make the corrections after the judge found them guilty of that, then the offense would be, again, if it's the same open violations, let's say it was the door or the porch and the window, we issued a notice, they didn't make the repairs, we issued them a fine, we went to court, then the judge said, you are in violation of this, and then they generally give a certain time period to make a correction. It may be 30 days, 60 days, that's at the judge's discretion. I can't speak for them. Then after that time period, if they fail to make a correction, then the municipality would escalate the fine amount again to go to in front of a judge for that, because it's the same offense, but it's already been heard by the court. So kind of understand on the process. I know it's kind of getting really into the weeds, but it's really trying to understand the process on how to go through. So I reviewed a lot of the different jurisdictions that were out there that may have already had like an escalating fee schedule. The state of Maryland does have some of those for different departments that they have, because it was local municipalities that had the inability to fine over $1,000. The state can really have no limit for lead paint laws. I know they go into the tens of thousands of dollars. So it was really local jurisdictions that were bound by this $1,000 cap. But the Maryland Department of Natural Resources and the Motor Vehicle Administration have escalating fees for each of the offenses. DNR was for fishing offenses. There was a particular type of bass or something. It was interesting on how it escalated up on that one. And then actually Motor Vehicle Administrations is for using your cell phone while driving. They have an escalated set fee schedule. So one of those that we are proposing, that if the elected body wanted to go with the escalating fine schedule, that it would be like a first offense would be $250, the second at $500, third at $1,000, fourth at $250, and fifth at $1,000. This is within a 2-year time period. So the 2-year time period would reset when you're not having any fines during that 2-year time period. The other one that I reviewed is that there were double fine escalations. They weren't so much really in Maryland, because like we said, it's only the state that has this right now. That in other jurisdictions, I found in other states, one was mostly for like health code violations. This one was particularly like rodents in restaurants, that it doubled each time you found a violation and were issued fines for that. So if the fine amount was $200, it went to $400 in the second offense. The third offense would be $800. The fourth offense would be $1,600, and the fifth offense would be $3,200. So they doubled them for each of the previous fine that you had. It was doubled the next time you were issued a fine. So basically, we're leaving up to the council if we want to do this. The effective date for the state law is not till October 1. If we would choose to move forward with any type of proposals and amendments to the local codes, it would not be introduced until next month with those, and it wouldn't be voted on until September. So it would be an effective date in late October. So right after the state law would be in effect. So we wouldn't be violating any type of state law. And if I told our attorneys we had to update 5 ordinances, and I told them we had a day and a half to get it on next week, they would not be happy with me. So those are the, that's the what the laws were saying and what we were proposing. What I, want to give you some context on some numbers, because sometimes people may feel, this is a revenue generator. All we're trying to do is raise the fees to create more money for, the city. And that's really not the case on those things. For example, and this was even with our attorneys, that I had to even explain this to them, because a lot of people feel when we issue a notice, it does result in a fine. We get a lot of what you call voluntary compliance, when people comply with, after being issued a notice without receiving a fine. Those are considered voluntary compliance. And for the amount of citations that we write and the number of notices issued, on average, a notice, we issue citations to 2.8% of the notices that we issue. So very few people receive notices. And on the number of unique properties, it's only about 118 a year that actually receive fines from our office. So there are not really many that are receiving fines. We have some fee structures in place that people do get fees for things like if we mow someone's lawn or pick up the trash off of their property, they do get fees from the city, but they don't receive fines until the third violation of the year. So it's really pushed out some for on those. We're not just tracking on the fines because
And that's just to recoup the cost of the abatement.
correct, and those are recoup the cost of the abatement. The one challenge that we have too is with our preset fine amounts that we have, most of them are at $200. Well, to be honest, the cost to the city is really more than the $200 that we're going to find with our attorney going to court, staff's time, everyone else that's put into it.
And
It's a lot
probably
less.
less than what they could contract out for somebody to do the work for them.
Yes.
So you just pay the fine.
Right. So those are kind of like the fines there, and kind of how it is. I have a ton of numbers here that I calculated over the last 10 years in case you had more detailed questions or any suggestions. Open to anything. Like we said, this was a new state law that was passed, and they're allowing municipalities to go up to $5,000. This is really kind of like your chance to kind of throw out some ideas, and I can come back at another work session. I just gave you a couple that I had done through my research and can do more research on this one.
This was unanimous support for the legislative committee at MML last year too, this bill.
And we have till October 1st, correct?
October 1st, 2025 is when it goes into effect. But by the timing of the way you do ordinances, the ordinance wouldn't be in effect until at the end of October. So
If you do, you want to be done by September.
like to get it done, yes. Like to introduce it next month.
So any thoughts on that? I'm open to anything. I'm here to listen. I really have no preset determination.
I would be in favor of option one, the escalating fine schedule. Out of the two options.
I would support that as well.
I do. I want to know the order. So if you said, like, what's number one? They just get notice of violation, and then comes what, and then comes what?
Okay.
Before they're,
Or fine. So generally speaking, let's say the porch and window example that I gave you. So we would go out and find a property that was in that violation, whether or not through a complaint or through some proactive type of enforcement, and a notice of violation to be issued to the owner. This is where you might feel that we give too much time to everyone, but generally we would give them 30 days to make that type of correction.
so after the notice of violation, they get 30 days
To make a repair.
to make, okay.
A repair. Generally speaking, after that 30 days and we haven't seen any work, an inspector will send them another letter just basically saying, hey, we issued a notice to this and you have not made repairs yet. Here's another 30 days to make the repair.
So a second notice of violation.
Right, kind of like an extension. We are granting an extension to someone. And it's at the inspector's discretion on how long they will allow something. And unfortunately, I couldn't provide you how long it takes from a time we issue a
Wait a minute,
notice.
can you say that
to when
again?
fine-
Is that the is
At
that
the inspector's discretion
of what?
of issuing a fine after they pass the deadline. So
Okay.
after 30 days, a fine can be issued. But generally speaking, the inspector will issue an extension letter to someone,
And it's up to the discretion of
the inspector.
Yeah, if it's
Why?
somebody, if it's
Why?
somebody like putting a porch, that they got a violation for a porch, and you can see that they're actively working on it, but
Okay.
it's not complete, then that inspector can then say, okay, I'll give you another 2 weeks to finish to finish the work, or, working with the owner to try to determine, yeah, you're making an effort, how much longer do you need within reason? And then that it's within their discretion, instead of just fining them after 30 days.
But it's two notices of violation. Each of them, they can possibly have 30 days
Could be.
to fix anything. And then after the second notice is up, it's in the discretion of the inspector to decide what's next.
Always, yes. So they could do another 30-day extension or they could issue a fine at that point.
If they go and there's nothing being done on the porch, and they go to the owner, and the owner says, oh yeah, I'm going to start that tomorrow. The inspector can then say, well, no, you're not doing anything. Here's the fine. Or they could say, okay, you got another week. If we don't see some progress within a week, then they come back and they fine. Am I accurate?
Right.
Okay, so.
But it's they get really one original chance, one additional chance.
So after that second notice of violation, what's next?
So they could be issued a fine.
So that that fine comes after that. With the discretion of
Correct.
the inspector.
And if
Correct.
we were to go with option one, that fine would be the 500.
It'd be
It would
250.
be the 250 startup.
Correct.
And then if it's still not settled, then it jumps up to the 5.
Correct, but that would be only after that we've already gone to court and a judge has ruled and found that the property owner was guilty of that infraction, then they would be given a timeline by the judge. Now, how long does it take us to get in front of a judge? Usually 3 to 4 months. So from the day that we write a fine, so like using Councilwoman's example there, they've already had 60 days. We wrote a fine. They get another 3 to 4 months on top of that before we get to court. So they could have had, in theory, 6 months up to this point. The judge then at that point can give them another month, 2 months, 3 months. They will hear what the person says to make those repairs. And then after that timeline would pass that the judge had ordered, if they had not made those repairs, another fine could be issued, which would escalate it up to the $500 because they're still in violation of city code. Or let's say they made those repairs to the porch and the window, and then, you know, another violation occurred at the property within a 2-year time period. Now, it's not when they issue notice. So let's say that it was like their door got broken or something, and it was after all of this, and it was a $250 fine. If their door got broken, we would issue a notice of violation for them to make the repair. They made the repair. They wouldn't get issued any type of fine. And so that would not escalate it to the $500. It would only be if we sent a notice for the door, they didn't make the repair, and after the 60 days or whatever the time period may be, and we had to issue a fine, then it would jump to the $500. So, because it was within a 2-year time period.
I guess I feel like the order is throwing me off because for one, we see so many buildings and overgrown grass and everything that's going on around town. So how many notices have them owners received? I mean, because we can ride by anywhere and say, okay, did they get, are they on the second or third?
Right.
You know what I mean? So I'm just trying to understand because then there's so much time in between each of these and then how you explain, then you got to go to court and that's another possible 60 days. You're stretching it.
So I guess,
Make-
I'm sorry, Scott, is there any way that we could get a little bit more aggressive
Oh,
when it came to?
But that is going to be at the discretion of this council
So
because
here's a thought. You go and that first offense is $250. Is it always necessary to go to court then? Or could you give them, however, whatever time frame it would be, escalate it to 500? Still not done, escalate it to 1,000? Still not done, then potentially go to court. Or escalate it to 2,500, then go to court. Or let it go the whole way to $5,000, and if the $5,000 isn't paid, then you take them to court. Delay the court to try to get compliance without having to go to court. That saves time, it saves staff time, it saves court time.
could be an option. I don't know how the legalities with it, but I can certainly work with the attorneys on that one if that's something to.
And that would be a little bit more aggressive to do it that way.
And then my second question is, do we have to start at the 250 minimum?
No.
Or is those certain?
So wherever the body would like it.
Yeah, wherever the body wants to.
When it comes to the vacant buildings and the nuisance abatement properties, I'm in favor of starting at a more aggressive
Your choice.
fine rate.
I just want to make sure we're not giving, also, okay, this is what I want to ask too. So this goes with, you said, any repairs to homes that need to be up to code, grass, trash, is this with, also with cars on the lawn, or, I don't know, cars parked the opposite way, cars with no tags?
So.
How
we'll have
aggressive
to
are we with that?
Right, so we'll have to watch on those. So So cars on lawns is a zoning code violation, not one of these, so that's not underneath
Okay.
my department's control.
Gotcha.
Cars parked the wrong way on a street or whatever street violations is an HPD violation, not a code violation with our department. So
Not
that
to
would
say
be,
we can't bring that back
Right.
at a later time.
right. It's just not our department, so I don't want to speak for
So
another
what, at
department.
one point it was with them, like you said, can't,
No.
oh, okay, I just want to
No,
make sure.
these are code enforcement
Gotcha.
areas only within their jurisdiction.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah.
And we can start the minimum amount anywhere you want. You can change the amounts per the chapters that you want. If you want to focus on vacants and make vacants a higher escalation quicker, it's up to you.
In the vacant buildings, for example, whoever owns them, it doesn't have anything, it's just, like, for example, say they're boarded up or the grass is looking crazy, but it doesn't have anything to do with them, okay, you know how you're going to court for a lot of the taxes. So like, say they're keeping, but that, like, if it doesn't look right, like as far as the grass, and they can get fined for that.
They can.
Okay. I just want to make sure I'm following because I just feel like a lot of that falling.
Well, the most challenging thing we'll have, and I know Michelle's back there and Amanda is as well, I think Amanda's still here, that there are a lot of dead people that own properties in town.
Right,
So I cannot take a dead person to court. So I am challenged on those particular properties, which is why we use the tax sale process to try to acquire some of those through that process to kind of tie into what you were saying. But unfortunately, you know, our ability to acquire so many in a certain time period is always a challenge to make an impact on those. So some that you might be seeing, they might be a deceased owner, unfortunately.
And you could start the timeframes.
Where is this at in our big?
It's in city code.
Okay.
It's in the city code. Yeah, just go to those chapters that are mentioned there.
And that's something else we could do too, as well as ordinance wise, is start like out of town owners. We can start.
We've got a whole list of things to bring throughout the summer and the fall back to you along these lines.
Ready.
I would agree with the more aggressive approach because of the emails that we constantly get about the nuances about, you know, oh, they got a notice and where are they at? They're still, you know, there's still an issue, they're still, but I want us also to be cognizant of the timeline to address certain issues, like having someone make sure they have their trash cleaned up is like a quick turnaround, right? But if there's like an issue with the porch or the windows, 30 days may not be sufficient.
There's not enough money
Because
to
of,
fix it, too.
right,
Yeah.
Right.
there's
Might not have the
costs,
funds there until 60 days.
there's
or whatever.
contractors or something like that. So I see that's where the
Yeah.
aggressive
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
but I just want us not to put like a strong, like 30 days has to be this for like
Yeah.
everything in a bucket, because that's not really realistic, but definitely an aggressive approach with the nuance issues. I think that would help solve
Yeah.
a lot of the complaints that we get with the same addresses, same neighborhood,
Same
are
addresses.
the ones that they're complaining about
Decades.
the most, so.
So certainly can bring those back with the nuisance, the situations in the vacant structures, and then to just let you know, like on how, like telling someone they have a broken window does tie to the property maintenance code, because it's not the vacant structure ordinance tells people you have to register. The code they cite is telling them underneath the property maintenance code, telling them they got to make the repair. So that might be part of it, but we can certainly bring those things back and some more ideas and certainly have that discussion. That's not a problem, but you gave me some focus
Yes.
on it. So I can certainly work on that, and I'll try to call some of my cohorts around the state too to see if they have any other similar things they're proposing.
But do we agree with like at least a escalation approach as a body? Do we agree with that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So we'll do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll work on that. Alrighty, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have the speed camera contract. We have Captain Tom Langston and Officer Tim Cole.
Hello.
Good evening.
We're here to request mayor and council approval to renew the speed camera contract with Ultimate. Officer Tim Culp runs our automated speed program and can discuss it with y'all and answer any questions you might have.
So our speed camera program, we currently have 12 cameras in the city. We've been operating those since 2012. Approximately over the last 4 years, we've been issuing about 25,000 speed camera tickets a year with all those cameras. It's, the program's constantly been cost neutral to the city, means it's fully funded by the violator. There's no money comes out of the general fund or taxpayers. It's fully funded by the program itself and the violators. The contract's the new contract we're looking at is a piggyback contract off of Calvert County. It's a 1-year contract with a 3-year renewal option with the contract. There is a price increase compared to what we're currently paying. We're currently paying $2,800 per camera per month. The new contract would increase that to $34.99 per camera per month. In the contract, there's also a clause that guarantees it be cost neutral to the city, meaning if we bring in, the contractor will accept what we bring in as payment. So if we bring in less than what we owe them, they'll accept that as payment in full. So once again, it remains cost neutral to the city.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I don't see this being a negative.
Yeah.
No?
They're all around schools, aren't
Yeah,
they?
these are all school zone cameras. They function Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Quick question, is there any way to tie into that 3-year instead of the 1 year so that we can avoid any?
It's an automatic
increases?
renewal.
Oh, it's an automatic.
renewal
Okay.
after that, yeah. So we,
There's also going to be an effort by several municipalities to look to expand our ability to place speed cameras in high traffic, high violation areas. For example, here in Hagerstown, Potomac Ave would be one, Virginia Ave would be one, that allows us to have the same abilities that Montgomery County, Prince George's County, and Baltimore City have. Not as a revenue generator because it ends up being no cost, or no profit making by the city, but just a way to slow people down and try to avoid things that happened on Potomac Ave a couple months ago. So that'll be another piece of legislation we'll be talking about in August.
Thank you.
Keep it easy. City Administrator.
All right, a couple things from the Parks Department. The BMX Northeastern State Race and Gold Cup Finals will be at the Fairgrounds Park BMX track, July 19 and 20 from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. They held this event last year and it was packed out there. It was a great event. They do a great job managing it out there. Also, registration is now open for the 13th Annual City Golf Championship on Saturday, July 26th at 8 a.m. at the greens at Hamilton Run. Registration will be open until Wednesday, July, that's not right. Yes, until Wednesday, July 23rd. The event's on the 26th. You have until the 23rd to register. Also, as I mentioned earlier, the Ferguson Group, our federal lobbyists, are finalizing the trip to D.C. on the 23rd. As I said, they've got invitations out to also Brooks, Van Hollen. Delaney has accepted, so we will be meeting with her personally. Also, we'll be taking a trip to the White House, actually the Executive Office building next door, to meet with the White House Office of Intergovernmental Affairs. And they are also trying to set up a couple more meetings with committees, subcommittees of appropriations to deal with infrastructure, water and wastewater, and transportation. So looks like it's going to be a pretty good day to go down, and we should have everything finalized by the end of the week. I'll have it out to you by then. Lastly, the MML Legislative Committee kicked off the initial meetings today. I was very interested and pleased to see that not only one, but two Baltimore City council members are on the committee this year, and I never recall Baltimore City being on there. The Honorable Mark Conway is our president this year, or our chairman, and Odette Ramos is on the committee. So very good to have Baltimore City participating again on the legislative committee. They will be a great resource for us as we try to advocate for some additional things that we have not had much success on in the past. That's it for me. Thank you.
Councilman Flaherty.
I don't have anything.
Councilwoman Anderson.
Just for me, I'm really excited for tomorrow. If anyone can come out, the Boys and Girls Club is celebrating their grand opening at 11 a.m. This is a good time to come show. Thursday. I'm sorry, it's tomorrow, not Thursday? Oh my God.
Yeah, I get my days confused.
Oh my God.
We're like,
I'm sorry.
Thursday.
Scratch that. I'm sorry. It's not tomorrow. It
I
is
thought it was
Thursday.
tomorrow, too, yeah.
So Thursday is still a very important day. Come out, show your support, show your love. This was like a well-deserved project for the city of Hagerstown. It not being our project, but well-deserved as far as the revitalization of that building itself. It was long overdue, so we are excited to celebrate with the kids and everyone who took part of that project. And as well as we are excited to welcome Dennis Scott Thursday again at 1 p.m., giving him the keys to the city. So if you are free and you have nothing to do, make it note this Thursday, the 17th, 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. Would love to see you guys. That's all I got.
Councilwoman Burnett.
Couple things. So last week I provided the body memo just capturing the mayor and I's meeting we had with city staff. The memo was titled Addressing Neighborhood Concerns Regarding Strategies, Ordinances, Partnerships, and Enforcement of Loitering, Trespassing, and Nuances. And I capture like bucket proposals or ideas, and I grouped them by 1, ordinances and regulations, police patrols and surveillance, partnerships with businesses, environmental design, community outreach, and social services, and also provided some examples of ordinances around the country. Out of that list, if I may, I would like to get feedback from the body on at least one of those buckets that we should tackle first. For me, I would be in support of tackling the ordinances. I think what we just mentioned tonight about the infractions fee is a good example. I know Scott is working on some other things behind the scenes. I would bring it back to the body, but if I could get a good path forward with ordinances. Okay, I think that'll be helpful too for staff.
Already
direction.
started filling up the agendas.
Perfect. Okay, one more thing. I was at a restaurant in Frederick last night and I met a gentleman named Craig, and he comes here often for the music series. And he said his family's from Frederick, they're born and raised in Frederick, but they come to Hagerstown often for entertainment. So I told him I would make sure I let the community and the public know that Frederick is coming here as well to visit us. So, yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Councilwoman Bell.
So I do want to say thank you to Captain Langston. I did a drive with him, which really opened my eyes to a lot of things. Funny thing, we went through one of the alleys. So I've never been through this alley. He said, "How you born and raised here? Never been in this alley." I was like, "Because I had no need to." There's some places that, you just don't go if you don't have no need to. But it made me realize something. Behind every corner and alley, there's somebody there that can tell a story. So we interacted with, obviously, drug use. We interacted with prostitution. And after that, I was left feeling like, what is next and what we can do? So I did send him a couple questions, which he responded very quickly. I asked him, could he put in words the things that the force did and is doing to stop the increase of prostitution. So one of the things was, he says, they conducted special enforcement details targeting predatory, but not only prostitution, but human trafficking. There's things that we don't even really know that they do, that is going on. So I just wanted to say thank you for that. One big thing was, I feel like, because we always say we want boots on the streets. That was his main thing that he said is powerful. One of the things was the protocol that officers have to take and wait once somebody is arrested and they go to the detention center. If someone gets arrested, if they claim to have some sort of physical ailment, the jail will refuse to take them. That means they got to take them to the hospital. That means they still got to wait with them. So it's important to know that these certain things take the officers off the street. So we have to be mindful of that. But even with that, they have to sit at the detention center. So we need to think of ways to where, since the detention center is a county, and ran by the county, maybe we can set something in process to where they can take them, but they don't have to sit there for long hours. We put somebody from the county that has to wait for them and put that in process and make sure that, and then we can put our officers back where we need them. I also just asked a brief description of Ashley's role. Her role has grown tremendously. I'm not sure if it started small when y'all put her in this position, but the amount of public service, if that's the right word, that she has to do, I feel like she needs a team behind her. She needs at least, an additional person. I did take the opportunity to print off, I can email this to our thing, but the crisis center that is at Meritus for addiction. I know that is one of the biggest things. I also think we should bring to the table not just organization, but people that are in the heart of it. Immediately, I thought of Deidre Norris, Mama D, for those that know her. She's not is just feeding our community, but she's an outlet. She's a resource for them. She's giving resource. We need to maybe get her at the table so we can understand a different protocol, because we see it, but we don't interact with it enough. Even Eliza's house, yes, that is my brother, but what he is doing for the unhoused, I sit there and I witness so many people come in and out. And even if they just need something to drink or a cup of coffee, he's offering that to them. I think we need to get people like that, may not be an organization, but it's people that are in the streets. We need to understand what they feel that they need, not just coming from a direct resource. So yes, once again, I'm gonna piggyback on Thursday. Thursday is a big deal. We have the ribbon cutting for Boys and Girls Club, and I'm so honored to have Dennis come home and be awarded the keys to the city. He is family, so I'm very anxious to see him, love on him, and award him with what I feel he deserves. That's what I have.
Well, real quick,
Yes.
thank you, Councilman Bell, for help organizing the keys to the city. I know you were instrumental in getting this done, so I want to give you your flowers.
Thank you so much. I
You're
appreciate it.
I want to give out a shout out to our HPD officer, Langley Dean. He was shot in the line of duty and he is recovering. And we just want to let him know that, myself and city staff are thinking about him. And once again, I know he's heard it a million times, but I want to tell him thank you one more time. I met today at lunch with Steve Jones, the Clean Up Hagerstown fellow. He is still doing amazing work out there. I don't know if people follow him on Facebook and see the amazing work that he's done. He reached out to me. We sat down for lunch today, and I, basically wanted to see what kind of resource we could be. So we're going to supply him bags, do whatever it takes to give this fella help until he just filed for his nonprofit. So in about another 6 months, he's already named his company. It's called Keep It Clean Maryland Incorporated. So he'll be able to file for grants and whatnot. So just want to say thank you to him again. And I'm looking forward to Thursday at Meredith Park, where we can sit down with city staff at a game and have a good time and intermingle with each other. So I'm really looking forward to that. That's it for me. Do I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I get a second? Any discussion about anything tonight? Okay, we're adjourned.
Any of y'all like to go with me to the Oscar neighborhoods first?
Tommy.
That's this evening.
Hello and welcome to Council Wrap. I'm Wes Decker, and boy, it's been a while since I've done a Council Wrap, so hopefully I'm not too far out of practice. Here to help me get through all of this is Emily Conrad, who is the Economic Development Coordinator. And since the last time I saw you, we've never had you on Council Wrap, so it's a pleasure to have you on this evening. But at the same time, can you talk a little bit about the organizational changes within the department where you work? I know it's nothing necessarily drastic, but what are the changes maybe that people should be aware of in addition to just the name of the department itself?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Wes. So we've recently undergone a reorganization of what was formerly the Department of Community and Economic Development. And our city administrator had the wisdom to kind of separate the community development side and put it with other housing resources. So now there's going to be the Department of Housing and Community Development, under which will be all of our community development grant programs that include CDBG money, as well as the code and inspections type of functions of the city. Anything that has to do with housing and getting assistance for housing. So any emergency repair grants that may have been passed through money down to the city to help our residents is going to be in that department. Then on the side that I'm in is economic development is joining forces with planning and zoning. So we will be the Department of Planning and Economic Development with Kathy Mayer having retired. Our current director, Jill Thompson, is at the helm of this new department. DPED, DPED for short, if you will. So we'll be helping everything from on the business side. So if you're looking to start a business in Hagerstown, or if you're looking for site selection, growing a business, taking a vacant property or an existing property and putting forth new planned proposals, have any questions about zoning, we'll all be together to help assist with that, as well as grant funding for businesses as well.
And I think on the surface, that makes a lot more sense for people who are looking for those resources to go to one particular place to find them all there. Now, for old guys like me, it's tough to get used to because it was the Department of Community and Economic Development, and that's how I've known it the entire time I've been here. So I'm still getting that through this thick skull. But I always say that, you get to do a lot of the fun things, the grand openings and things of that nature. So what is it about your job that you enjoy the most?
I agree. My job is very fun. I feel very blessed that I have one of the funnest jobs in the city. I get to work with businesses that are opening in the city of Hagerstown and work with them on coordinating a grand opening, which is a free service that the city of Hagerstown provides to any business opening or relocating, or maybe even reopening after you may have had a big renovation in city limits. So it could be downtown, it could be on the outskirts of that city limit, and we invite out local elected officials from city, county, state, federal government. We create some marketing materials for those businesses, and we put some marketing money out of our budget behind that too. So it's kind of like rolling out the red carpet to new businesses. We also like to honor anniversaries. So if there's a business that's hitting their 10, 20, 30. We even have one coming up in September, Triad Engineering celebrating their 50th anniversary.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, so it's really great to be able to celebrate those success stories and also create a path for success for new ventures in the city as well.
Yeah, and what's really cool about that is, as you said, it's no money out of the pocket of that business themselves, yet it's a lot of added value for them in terms of the publicity that goes along with it.
Absolutely. It's just another great reason to make Hagerstown the home for a new business.
So let's talk about the project that you were in front of Mayor and Council earlier this afternoon, presenting to them. And this is one where, this has a lot of ramifications to it. We're talking about a plan to chart the course for the next 10 years for downtown Hagerstown. So first, let's start, maybe you can give us a little background on how we got here, as you understand it. I know during the meeting, you talked about the previous 10-year plan a little bit, and working with the same consultants who helped forge the way for Hagerstown with that one. But talk about how this one is different and where we are in the process right now.
Sure. So I believe back in 2013, the elected body at the time made a decision to make a plan for the next 10 years. So the city put that job as for the consultants out for bid. We were looking nationwide for a consulting company to come in and give that outside perspective, but also that experience in the industry. And there's different parts of that, including most importantly, getting community input, also doing market analysis, and then ultimately developing what they call catalyst projects, which are essentially goals for the city to focus on achieving over the next decade. So from 2014 to 2024, I believe there were 8 catalyst projects, and my boss Jill did a presentation a few months ago recapping what those catalyst projects were and how we hit them, or those that did not get hit. So the company that won the bid was Urban Partners.
Urban Partners out of Philadelphia.
Out of Philadelphia in 2014. And we had many companies put it out for bid again this time around, and they were selected. And they bring not only their expertise, but their experience working with the city of Hagerstown in the past. This time around, they've also brought on an additional company to assist with the urban planning side of it. It's a company called MKSK based out of Atlanta. So we have Philadelphia, Atlanta, all coming to the table here in Hagerstown to look ahead for the next 10 years. And right now, we're at the part where we're getting community feedback.
Okay. Give me a little insight, because I know there are going to be people, because this happened when we went through the rebranding years ago. They said, why are you spending your money with a company out of Ohio to determine what we're going to do here in Hagerstown, Maryland? So tell me why this is beneficial. I knew why that was beneficial and could explain it to people, but why is it beneficial to get eyes from outside of Hagerstown, perhaps? And of course, as you mentioned, Urban Partners has the familiarity with Hagerstown in terms of being part of the previous 10-year plan. But then, as you said, you've got Philadelphia, you've got Atlanta. Why is this beneficial to the people of Hagerstown?
Yeah, it's a great question. So these types of businesses are working with cities all over the country. So they have seen what's going on and what has worked and what has not worked in other cities, big and small, medium-sized cities all across America. So they're able to bring that experience to the table that we may not have exposure to, just focusing on the details of running Hagerstown to the best of our ability every day.
And that's a great point too, the word you use, focus, because we get hyper-focused on what's happening here. And sometimes because we are that focused on that, we can't see it from a different perspective. So having those fresh eyes on things, I think sometimes is much more beneficial than many people believe, because we get very territorial about things. It's like, well, why can't we figure this out for ourselves? Well, I think we do that to the best of our ability. But with something like this, I think you want all perspectives that you can possibly get. That brings me to the survey. And that's exactly what you want. You want as many people to respond to this survey as possible, those who will affect downtown Hagerstown in years to come through their answers in the survey, but then those who will be living in this area, young and old, as we heard in the council meeting. So take me through that a little bit, talk a little bit about the survey and how people can weigh in terms of that survey.
Yeah, absolutely. So Urban Partners and MKSK have developed this survey and a host website. They've kind of branded this project My Downtown Hagerstown.
Yeah, that's right.
So the website you can go to take the survey and to learn more about the project is mydowntownhagerstown.com. We've used social media to send this survey out. It's asking questions such as what's working in Hagerstown, what's not working, What would you like to see happen? Are there any types of housing that we're missing? Are there any type of transportation or physical ability barriers in the structure of the city that need to be addressed? They have an interactive map, so you can put, one of the questions is to put on the map where you love to go. Like, where do you like to spend your time? What's your favorite thing to do downtown? There's another interactive map portion that's saying, where's a problem area? Where do we need to focus? And what makes you say that? Specifically looking for details of what needs to be addressed. And it's so important to get different perspectives. So that is why we want to encourage everyone watching today or listening today to go to mydowntownhagerstown.com, take that survey. If you've already taken the survey and you know someone who hasn't, send them the link. If you hear someone complaining about a problem, send them the link, because this is the time to be heard. If you have great things to say, or if you have suggestions, we want to hear it all.
About how long does it take to get through the survey? Do you have a sense
I'd
of that?
say about 3 minutes.
Okay.
3 to 5 minutes, depending on how much time you want to put into your answer.
So investing 3 to 5 minutes to have some impact on the next 10 years seems like a pretty good trade-off to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there is no reason not to take that survey. We talked a little bit in the council meeting earlier in bringing mayor and council up to date on where we are in all of this about some of the stakeholder roundtables. Give me some idea of what's still to come in that process and sort of where you've been to this point in time.
Sure. So we had one in-person stakeholder meeting, and that was the same day that we had the community open house hosted at the library. I believe it was June 26th. That one was for downtown businesses. They all came together here in council chambers. The consultants were in town, and they kind of went around, did introductions, and asked a few questions. I think there's like 4 conversation starter questions. And then for the other roundtable discussions, we identified some different focus groups. So we're looking at, for example, today was the first virtual one. It was the community development side. So those were our nonprofits were invited in the community, in and around the community. Pretty much anyone that would have impact on people who live, work, travel through Hagerstown that we have a connection with.
Okay.
There are other, I'm going to go to my notes here so we can list all of them, because there's 9.
Yeah, I saw that. It's pretty impressive, actually, in terms of really breaking down those groups and trying to, receive information based on those. We've talked about the different perspectives, but you certainly get what you would think would be a certain collective perspective from each, but you're also going to get individual voices within those groups. So that has, in the end, that has to be pretty beneficial. So yeah, go ahead and go through your list there.
Sure. We also, today we did the arts, culture, tourism, and education group. So that one was really valuable to hear. Tomorrow is going to be the commercial real estate group and the young professionals / youth group. So that includes our youth council, past and present, as well as the Chambers Gen Next group, which is young professionals age 39 and younger. Now, just looking ahead, if you go to mydowntownhagerstown.com, there is a portion that says if you want to be part of this roundtable discussion, you can shoot us an email and ask us to join it, and we'd be happy to send you the link and have your voice. So other ones coming up this week, we have economic development partners. And then next week, we have the housing real estate. We have our boards and commissions. So those are a lot of the service-based that get into the minutia of everyday government. And then we have a large employers list on July 24th. And then our city staff directors also on July 24th. So if you don't feel like you fall into one of those categories, take the survey.
Yeah, very simple, again, to be part of this and want as many people as possible to be part of it. Is there anything that you've heard, any of the responses maybe that you've heard so far that you're like, wow, that's something I hadn't thought of? I mean, has there been anything that's just sort of been real thought-provoking to you to this point in time?
Absolutely. Today, working with the community development group was very interesting because these are people that are working with like nonprofits in our community and sometimes the people who have the greatest need in our community. So it's great to hear that perspective because they're the ones, a lot of times when we hear about city resources that are not city government functions, but they're community resources. These are people representing those groups. So to hear their feedback was really valuable. So like, for example, just talking about the needs for, shelters and also different services, things like that. One interesting thing that has come up in every group, but was also on the 10-year plan last time around, is having a hotel downtown. That one keeps coming up in every group. So that one's interesting as well.
Yeah, very much so.
Especially with the flying box cars downtown now. That was not, having the stadium downtown was not part of the 10-year plan.
No.
It was just like an added benefit.
Yeah.
And everyone seems to say, that was great. The other thing that keeps coming up is the narrative, the perception. So people who actually are coming downtown regularly, working downtown, living downtown, generally have positive experiences. And people who are coming from out of state generally have positive experiences. Somehow there's some small fraction of people who have sworn off coming downtown because they have a perception of fear. That is a narrative that comes up. And honestly, if you live in fear, you're missing out. So.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. It's almost become generational in a way because it starts within a family that, hey, I'm not going to go downtown. And then it just keeps getting passed down generation to generation. And like you said, I mean, for this younger group, you hope that maybe some of those kids perhaps go to Barbara Ingram or, they're down here for something where it's not just to come downtown, but for another reason. And they experience, that there aren't issues downtown or those that have been blown out of proportion by the perspective of others. So yeah, hopefully, we can straighten all of that out at some point in time. It's not an easy proposition. We know that, but we'll continue to work on it. As we wrap up here, so what's the timeline on this for people who want to follow it? Certainly, we again encourage them to take the survey, but as we move through this process, what is our timeline to what you might call the finish line for this?
Sure. So we started working with these partners in April. They plan to continue the community feedback through August. There's not a hard stop date, so I'd say get in there and get that survey done as soon as possible. If you have a phone or a computer, you can submit one survey per IP address. So be sure to share it with your friends, neighbors, family members. And then we're looking at November, December to kind of be wrapping up and be ready to move on to the presentation. And then hopefully the mayor and council will see fit to adopt the 10-year plan, and we will have a roadmap ahead for the future.
I'll tell you what, it's exciting. I mean, thinking about the next 10 years and gathering all the input and then seeing how you kind of mix up all those ingredients and what those catalyst projects are going to be and so on and so forth. So
it is exciting.
It is.
I have a little one on the way. So to think that this child will be finishing up elementary school when the next time a 10-year plan rolls around is really significant. So that's why it's also so important to get that youth perspective. The kids who are, like Councilmember Anderson said today, the kids who are in high school now are going to be in their 20s by the time this wraps up, knocking on 30's door, as we say.
Wow. Wow. Boy, you're really rushing things.
Well, 10 years goes by fast.
You're right
if you
about
don't
that.
have a plan, you're kind of spinning your wheels. And I think it's great that the city is thinking ahead and making progress for the future.
Yeah, and not just the city, but again, gathering the input from everyone else. The city might be at the forefront of getting us there, but we're not doing it without you. So again, be part of this, take the survey. Emily, thank you very much for sticking around and talking about this evening. Thanks to all of you for watching. And again, be part of this. I mean, this is your opportunity to affect the next 10 years in the city of Hagerstown, specifically downtown. For now, that is a wrap. I look forward to seeing you next time on Council Wrap.